Artlist.io.
Hey everybody, John E Avocado here with Purpose Your Passion. And today's guest is Brandy Wheeler, a good friend of mine. She has an amazing story that I'd like her to share with us so that we can all have a little bit of a sense about what it is to be strong and persevere even in some of the toughest times. Brandy is one of the most powerful survivors that I've ever met. She has lived through quite a bit of her own story and has come out on the other side pretty strong. Brandy, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's always good to chat with a friend.
Right? So now you and I, we both kind of have following the same ideology of this positive psychology, is that you have to have a positive mindset for you, to let yourself move forward or advance yourself in your life. So you have had a number of struggles that a lot of other folks have not had to suffer with. Could you tell us with just what a few of those might be?
Yeah, well, first off, I hope no one ever has to deal with these struggles. But, I don't know that I necessarily see them as struggles, but things that I have just experienced and learned from. But I'm a mother of a child who is diagnosed with severe autism. And so that is certainly challenging. When my children were younger, they were 4 and 7 at the time, I was diagnosed with breast cancer at the age of 33. Wasn't really planning on doing that. And, just various other life moments. I have a sister that requires a lot of assistance and just a lot of people with a lot of needs that I interact with frequently.
So that's part of why I point you out as such a survivor, because sometimes in that survivor situation, we always have to go down to the things that are close to us to help us move through difficult situations. And I call you out because you don't just go back into that survivor situation and make yourself secure. You're able to come back out of that and put yourself back into the mode of success and further advance yourself into significance. And so that's really kind of a lot of what I'd like to maybe discuss with you today about how you make some of those transitions. And so the story that you told me that really probably touched me the closest was the story that you told me about learning that your son was special needs, that you you'd already had this plan for your life. We always think how we want things to go. And then suddenly in a moment, all of your future is up in the air. Can you talk to us about that just a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So Skeet is currently 19. My son's name is Skeet. And when he was 2.5, he never did the language explosion like you're supposed to. Him being my oldest, so in love with him, I I couldn't see it. And my husband started noticing it, and he started pointing out some things. And after a couple of doctor's visits, we were pretty certain that was the path that we were on. And it was difficult trying to convince other family members that no, this is really happening. And I think of a story of my mom. She had watched him for us for a couple of days, and up until that point, she was like, I don't see it. And when I opened the front door of her bringing him back after that 2-day visit, she was standing there sobbing, and she was like, I see it. So, there's disappointment, there's guilt. I try to be very real about this experience. I know that his future looks different than other kids, and consequently, it makes my future look different. But it was really just not what I had been planning on doing. Yeah.
Right. So what was it? So what did you have to do? How did you kind of bring yourself to terms with that? Now, so it affected just not you and just not Skeet, but the whole family. How did the family pivot on this information? What happened? Did everybody suddenly take this and run with it, or was there some difficult transition, or how did that go down?
Yeah. You sort of have to just work through feeling like it's your fault, and there was nothing that I know that I did or could have done to have made this situation different. And just really, for me, I tend to make it through the logical steps and then try and drag my heart along with it, and so I had to go through all of okay, what does the science say? What do we need to do now? Did I really do something that caused this? No. Okay. Is it something I could have controlled? No. Okay. And just sort of use that factual information to heal myself and move forward, figure out what he needed and what we needed.
Well, that was the part of what I wanted maybe to have you talk about a little bit there is building that plan. That's that thing that I talk about all the time is dream, plan, do. And even in moments like this tragedy, you have to sometimes reevaluate what that dream is and build a new plan to move forward. And so that was part of what I commend you about your ability to travel, to transverse from the survival to the success is that immediately and instantly you started to take that upon yourself and try to reevaluate the situation, take measure of things, where you wanted to go next with that, and then how you were going to get there.
Yeah, I was fortunate that I did not see this as the end of anything, you know. Um, Ann Landers has this great piece that she wrote about a family learning that they have a child with disabilities, and it's basically, you think you're going on this trip and you're going to go to Europe and you're going to see Big Ben and you're going to see all these great things, but when you get off the airplane, you're in Holland, and you were like, not what I was planning on, And then
Yeah.
the longer you're in Holland, the more you realize they've got windmills and they've got all these beautiful tulips, and you just find those things in that experience that you can enjoy. And honestly, I feel lucky that I've got to experience something different than a lot of people get to do.
This is true. So now I want to reflect on that just a little bit, because you and I'll get a little bit into my own story here. Our own son, my wife and I, our son, we had a lot of this denial ourselves. And now our son isn't special needs, but of course he has ADHD. And so we had to have that diagnosed and we had to have that figured out. But it was a long time before we let ourselves, my upbringing, even my own past didn't let me ask the questions as soon as I maybe should have. And then we felt, you and I had this conversation. I almost felt a lot of grief or guilt as if I hadn't addressed this sooner. And you helped me walk through a lot of that with some of what you said. That reflection of those questions. Was this something I could have done? Did I know the information? How quickly could I get at it? And that really helped me get through it quite a bit. Thank you for that, Brandy.
Good. Yeah, that's not to say that I really do feel like you follow a grief process when you learn this, and you should, and I don't want to diminish anyone who has truly lost a child from this earth, but the emotions, I would guess, are fairly similar in following that grief process. And I actually have a friend who lost a baby, and after she had worked her way through that, she came to me one day and said, I bet you grieved the child you thought you were going to have. And you absolutely do. You absolutely do. And that's normal, and that's healthy, and that's part of the process of getting through it,
And so now that's maybe something I'd like to speak to a little bit. I kind of had a rough patch with that. And I can imagine that others do that self-reflection, did I do something wrong? Did I cause this? Did I get to this in time? How could you maybe help some other folks maybe reconnoiter that and move past those questions?
So you grieve the things that you feel you've lost, but then you look for the things that you've gained that others won't get to experience. And so immediately when you become an autism parent, you're thrown into an amazing community of people who are going through similar things as you. And you build relationships with those people who understand that you can say those things about your child that you would never think you would utter out loud, but are really cathartic for you to say to another person who goes, oh yeah, I totally get that. It's really fortunate that I like little kids because I've got one forever.
Yeah.
The successes when it takes Skeet a really long time to learn a new skill, a very simple skill, but when he does, he will never ever forget it again. And just the sheer joy of a simple accomplishment for him, you would have thought that he'd gotten into Harvard the way we celebrate around here,
Heck yeah.
And just amount of work that he puts into that is the hardest working kid I know, in terms of when someone's trying to get him to learn something and how many times he has to go through it. I mean, he's like doctorate level putting the dishcloths away,
It's a lesson in persistence, even
Yeah.
even in the face of failing again and again. He's willing to trust you and to trust the process and to trust the people around him and to trust himself enough to go ahead and keep trying. There's something about
and his brain is just wired that way. He likes repetitive, he likes repetition, he likes rote. So that's how he's been taught his whole life. And, that's a joyous thing that he is persistent the way he is.
finding those things you're good at and tapping into them. I mean, that's
Yeah.
success for all of us. I want to go back just a moment to what you started to talk to a little bit about finding community. And I want to bring this up because we had, I have my monthly networking events. We just talked about sacrifice. And one of the things that you have to think about with sacrifice is to change the idea of the price I paid to the mission I accomplished. This was something they had taught me in the Air Force, was to try to change that mentality around that. And so what you spoke of there just a moment ago was tapping into a community that first lets you recognize that you're not alone. So you gain some perspective and some position in the world upon your situation. And then recognizing within others, what that sacrifice, and it's not just a cost or a price you paid, but it's something that you've gained. And to be able to share with folks in your community really gives you the opportunity to have insights that you might not have gained on your own. Is there a group of folks that did you seek out other autistic parents like immediately, or how was some of that stepping into that world for the first time?
Yeah, I probably didn't follow like a super traditional route on that. I'm not a super, this is just me. There's nothing wrong with how you need to deal with it, but I'm not a sit in a support group and cry about it for weeks on end kind of person.
Right.
But you know what? Call it what you want. I call it a God thing, but people were put in my life who became that community for me. My best friend also has a severely autistic child, and I don't think we would have the relationship that she and I have had we not shared this experience with our children. I don't know that we would have ever met each other,
Mm-hmm.
So it's just looking for those doors that are put in your world and kind of peeking through it and seeing see what's in here. Is this for me?
Let me go back one more moment here, and we'll kind of reflect on this story a little bit. There, toward the beginning, you talked about your because I want to kind of get to this idea of community and your support structure and the folks around you. You had started to say that you'd seen it yourself, and then you have to convince the rest of the family a little bit to kind of see it for themselves as well.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything that you could maybe pass on to somebody who might be in a similar situation about finding the time to ask the right questions first of themselves, and then maybe to try to work with the people around them to let them recognize or see these situations as well?
Yeah. I think just having some talking points that you're comfortable with, that you believe, and I really didn't try to I wanted people to understand, but honestly, if you couldn't wrap yourself into this and what we were dealing with, then that's your problem, not mine.
I don't have time or room for you right now.
Yeah,
Well,
this is not the most important thing I had to focus on, was you not believing me.
right.
So you just kind of present the information and see what people step up and what people step out.
Right. Did that change? Your friends change because of sometimes your situation. Did your friends change, not just because you had to find new friends that fit within a new community to you, or did you have difficulty keeping old friends?
Our friends are wonderful, but the way we interact certainly had to change because my child didn't behave like other children. And so things that we maybe would have done in the past when he was younger, or before we had kids, gone out to dinner, or, spent all day at an amusement park, or whatever that may be, didn't work for us anymore. And so, either we just pivoted to a different kind of interaction. Okay, come over. We'll have dinner at the house, or we'll put the blow up pool in the backyard, or New Year's is at my house, to try and either your friends decide to that they can accept that, or they don't. And so be it.
Right. So how about let's step on to the next one here. So now you're a scout mom. So I want to talk about that just a little bit. So now a lot of the things that you do with the scouts, because you have another son, Wyatt, who
I do.
doesn't have any diagnosis that
And
we're
he's
aware of.
typically developing. Yeah.
He's typically developing. I want to talk a little bit about how you approach the sibling interaction. Now, I know sometimes things are very difficult for the parent, and as the parent, there's a lot of self-sacrifice that you can make for yourself, for your child. Would you, and I know it might be difficult, would you speak to us a little bit about that sibling interaction and what some of those situations might be and how you might deal with those?
Yeah, sure. And again, I probably understand why it's positioned better than most parents, because I am a sister to someone who had lots of medical needs. And so I get his role because I lived it. They don't have a traditional brother relationship. Wyatt keeps advancing and Skeet advances, but significantly slower than him. Just to give folks an idea, Skeet, I generally describe him as about the function level of a 4-year-old. And so, Wyatt's 15 and a half and he's into other stuff, and he really becomes a third parent. And we try really hard not to place those responsibilities on him. He does have some responsibility to the family because family, but he'll have to worry about his older brother more than he'll want to when he's a young man or an older man, hopefully a much older man.
Right.
So yeah, he came to me when he was 3 or 4, and he goes, Mom, I'm kind of like the big little brother. And that was when he could see it and he knew. And I'm like, yep, you sure are the big little brother.
So how about we move on to trying to tackle some of these challenges. Now, oftentimes you run into situations where you have a difficult day. Can you share with us maybe some of the techniques that you use? Because I know you got to do it for yourself. You got to take yourself out of that dark place and you got to bring yourself back into the light. Now, you oftentimes might have a difficult day with your son at home and then have to either go into the office or come to the scouts and deal with these kids, or to even have to deal with the rest of the family. Could you give us any insight into some of the tools or techniques or tips that you have that might help folks kind of make those transitions if they have circumstances similar to yours?
Yeah. I am pretty fortunate that I have a really long fuse just in general. And so I'm also great at compartmentalizing. I don't know that that's a super great survival technique, but I really am. So I leave it where it happened. If we have a rough morning and he gets on the bus and leaves, I go, phew, and get ready for work and get in my car and get my coffee on the way and turn the radio up and go to work, and I'm at work. And I know that's, not like I meditate or, something like that, but it's what works for us. I also have been known to just, when it all gets to be too much, I'll take a break. I'll be like, I'm out. I'm gonna go over here for a couple of days, and I'll come back. Or, it's just even like I jokingly say, but not really, that I'm Skeet Wheeler's executive secretary, for all of the paperwork that I have to keep track with him. And there's sometimes like when I've been working on something really, really hard and it's just not happening the way that I want it to, qualifying him for benefits or getting him something that I think he needs. I might get an email that needs a response and I leave it there for a week because I just don't have it in me to deal with it that week. And then I'll pick it back up on the Monday and, get back into it. But, give yourself permission to work on what you can work on. And if you need to wait a minute to do it, then wait a minute to do it. It is,
That I want to talk about that just a little bit. Two things you said there. The one was community. It just kind of touched on it, but didn't say it out loud. But when you tap out, you tap into your community. You're asking somebody else to tap in or to help you, your support structure, your system. So I can't stress to everybody who might be listening enough. The first thing you want to do in any situation, any circumstance, if you can find outside help, man, that's one of the first things you can do that can give you some of the greatest resources and relief right away, no matter what the situation is. And then the next one is that bit of a compartmentalization. We talk a little bit about that survival or success or significance, aspect of where we keep our mentality at a time. And that the survivability, that is compartmentalization is absolutely a part of that sub process. You have to be able to leave things set where they are. You got to keep the bait on the cutting board sometimes while you're fishing. And so that you got to pay attention to the task at hand. So to be able to do that in a survival situation is absolutely key. You just have to, use some of those techniques and tips that when you step out of that survival and into success or significance, that you don't keep yourself so pigeonholed into that kind of mentality that you have to put your ideas together to make, thoughts that interact and intertwine with each other. The way for us to find a path down the road is to make convergences. And if we keep things too siloed, we won't let ourselves think in those complicated or complex ways.
Sure. So, I heard a really great advice yesterday. And do I remember who said it? No, I do not. However, it was when you're dealing with something that's difficult, or, like an ism, or the thing that's named whatever it is, ours is autism, you need two support communities. One community that absolutely 100% gets what you're going through. And then you need another one that has absolutely nothing to do with this. So you can step out of it, and that's really compartmentalization of support, is having that group that gets it and the group that knows nothing about it, and, jiving with both.
Right. Yeah. And so sometimes we have to have those dual roles, and we have that in a lot of times in a lot of places in our lives. And something about the family, it often strikes folks, it seems like such a rift or a separation. But I appreciate you talking about folks and to encourage that you're not creating two separate lives. You're allowing yourself to live the fullest part of your lives in two halves.
Yeah, I absolutely use my involvement with Scouts as respite for myself. I found a way to give and to get all in the same bundle with that one. So I'm lucky that I have that community.
Oh, that's fantastic. So we want to step on to something that's positive here, a little bit more forward. So what is it? Tell me a little bit about what you do with the Scouts, and so that we know how much of a Scout mom you really are, because you don't just support your son and that's autistic and do all the things that you need to do for him. You have such a huge heart that you really do give so much love and consideration to all these Scouts that we interact with. And some of these Scouts, like all kids, can be difficult or trying in their own way at times. So you jump out of one frying pan and into another. Would you talk to us a little bit about that? I mean, I know you love a challenge like me, but gosh, girl.
So several years ago, just like I know you did, you kind of have a conversation with yourself. Is like, what is my life really about? Like, what is the overarching theme of my life? And some people do that through goal setting, and some people do that through seeking spirituality, and some people, all the different ways that people try to find meaning for their life. I'm terrible at setting goals. And so the idea that came to me was I want my life to be used to serve others. Like, if when I'm gone, they're like, lady helped out, that's what I want. And so, and then the thing that I had to is like, that's just really not specific. So then the thing I had to think about and had to pray for was giving me the ability to see it when it's presented, and so that is my constant. Okay, this is what I think my life should be about. Please give me the tools to make that happen. Allow me to see where I can serve when it's needed. And so being involved in Scouts is kind of twofold, in that I absolutely remember being a 10-year-old girl, and I had some friends that were in the Boy Scouts, and I was like, I want to do that. And my mom was like, honey, you can't do that. And I'm like, why not? That looks awesome. And she's like, because they don't let girls do it. So I had to wait until I was 40 years old to be able to be a girl,
to be a female Boy Scout.
Yeah. So
I'll get in vicariously through my son.
Exactly. I just, as an adult, I could see the value in the program. I know it has its own bag of issues, and that is what it is. Mm-hmm. The little group that I'm involved with, we serve a really interesting population. A lot of the schools that our troop draws from have a lot of kids who come from non-traditional families, and that we've got a lot of single moms. I think there's some financial instability that happens with some of those kids. And so I find their involvement in scouting to be even more important because they have those needs, because we can be a respite and we can be a place of calm and support and maybe fill in some gaps in their lives that they're missing. And that absolutely fulfills my life's purpose.
Oh, this is why I love you, Brandy. This is why I love you so much. You're such a big-hearted person. So I want us to have a fun story here. So I want you to tell me, if you can remember, give me a good scout story. Give me a good why does Brandy love being with the Boy Scouts story?
Oh, you're catching me.
I'm catching you off guard.
Yeah. I mean, I just love the kids. We're a smaller group, and I've always loved kids. I went to college to work with kids, and then the environment that I was set up to work with those kids in, I loved the kids and did not like the administration around it, and thought, this is going to kill me if I keep doing this. And so I had to pivot and do something else for a paycheck, but then found my passion in hanging out with the Scouts.
Well, I tell you, it's not just. I want to say it's more than just hanging out, because the scout troop that we're a part of, and we're a part of the same troop here. What is the tell everybody what is the graduation to Eagle rate of, first off, maybe the national average or the district average, and then we have a pretty crazy one at the troop level, don't we?
Yeah. Kids that make it to Eagle, nationally, I think is in the like 40s. Kids that start their first year Scouts and then actually make it to Eagle is in the 40s, I think. And then
percentile.
40th percentile. And then in the Heart of America district, which is where we are, our troop that's the larger organizing body for this area. I think the Eagle rate's like 70% or something. It's some really high number. So it's something that's very popular around here, and we have a really strong program.
A strong program. And a lot of it has to do with dedicated folks like you, making sure that you get out there, getting the Scouts out there, making sure that they have what they need. You talked a little bit about some of the challenges that the Scouts and our troops run into sometimes. And you are such a powerhouse. I always thought that I overpacked, but I'm going to tell you what, you bring an extra tent, an extra coat, an extra pair of shoes. Here, have my socks because you got your feet wet, fool. Keep your feet dry next time. I mean, whatever it is that these kids need, you are super Scout mom, and you make it happen.
Sometimes the thing that they need is for me to not do that for them. And so that the older that they get, the less likely I am to baby them.
Yes.
Because there's a learning experience in suffering through cold, wet feet. And I have a limit. The time I gave your kid my socks, it was 0 degrees outside. And I was like, not going to bring him home with hypothermia, but
I appreciate that. He still complains about his toes on occasion. I tell you, that's a reminder to you. You won't forget socks next time, friend.
It was really cold. Yeah.
Yes, it was. They toughed it out. It was a good trip for them. They got cold and wet that weekend for sure.
The coldest camp out I've ever been on. Yeah, absolutely.
It was down to
zero.
Zero. That was pretty good.
Zero. Yeah.
And you guys were roughing it too. You were out in tents that night. Yeah.
The boys were in tarps.
The boys were lean-tos.
Yeah, they were survival camping. I was in my tent with my winter sleeping bag and my heater. The kids were outside.
Well, let's I'm trying to think here. What is there anything that you would like to tell anybody who might be at home struggling with some of these situations? What inspiration, where do you find inspiration and the dedication to keep moving forward through, the Scouts is a great one for you, but are there resources out there you might want to think about connecting someone with, or a thought that maybe somebody might want to take away with them to help them through the day, or that might deal with something like this, Brandy?
It's just one day at a time, one step at a time. I kind of always describe, those situations that you go through that seem significant and are somewhat traumatic. Like, do I want to set my house up and live on this hill? And the answer is almost always no. I don't want to stand on this hill and just live in this misery that I feel like I'm in. And so I'm not discounting the emotional, aspects that come to it, the things that are hard, the things you want to struggle with. But for me, moving forward almost always starts with a decision. Okay, I don't want to feel this way anymore. What do I need to do to not feel this way anymore? And then sort of develop a plan from making that decision. And the decision can be as simple as, I don't want to do this way anymore. Specific resources, gosh, there's lots, and they just depend on, what it is you're looking for. We've had fabulous luck with our school district. They've been wonderful every step of the way in helping us find resources to help serve Skeet better. There are several local autism organizations that put up fun events for the kids to get to go participate in, the things that may not have always been available on a regular day, but because they've held this special event, Skeet was able to go. And then I just try and find him acceptable places to have as many typical kid experiences as he possibly can. And the one that's just popping to the top of my mind that has been just fantastic for him was we're an outdoor family. And so he loves going to Camp Barnabas. That is the best 5 days of his life every week. Every year when he gets to go for that week, that is his week.
That's awesome.
Yeah, just, finding those things for yourself. And it really starts with just asking lots of questions. I started asking questions about stuff I knew I was going to have to worry about years in the future because I knew it was going to take that long to find the right answer. So if I find somebody who I think knows more than I do about what it is, the direction I think I want to go, I will annoy them with the number of questions that I try and get information from them about.
Right. So I want to touch on that just a little bit about what some of your recommendations there were. And first off is, a lot of people who may listen to this or hear this are going to be probably on one side or the other. They're going to be hopeful or hopeless, because sometimes when something like this hits you, that's kind of where you find yourself oftentimes when you think about the situation. The folks that are waiting to move forward and the folks that already are. So we talked a lot about some folks, this information of folks that have made that decision, like we talked about. That's that thing I preach off, is that dream, plan, do. That's that planning stage in there where you've made that decision, you're going to start following through on it. Community seems to be a lot of an answer here, finding resources outside of yourself. So I would like to maybe speak just a little bit, so maybe you can reflect as well. You've heard me talk about this before. And so people who find themselves on the front end of that decision, where they still are trying to find hope, I want to call out to them and let them know about, where I talk about the 3 hopes. So that the places that you find that hope is first within yourself. You try to find that answer. Those are the questions that you ask of yourself. That questioning yourself is the first one. And if you don't find that answer within you, then the next place to look is without you, right? Is within your community, the spaces outside of you, because then the answer could oftentimes be there. And then there's that third hope that we always have to find, is the one, even if nobody else understands my situation, or if there is no movement, the inevitability of change and the truth of my spirituality tells me that the belief and the hope from beyond my situation will change. So the thing that I would maybe speak to anybody that finds themselves on either side of that situation is to continue to find and look for that hope. And the best place to find that, to ask those questions of yourself, is within your community. Do you agree with that? Did you find that you found many of your answers not within yourself, but within outside and within the community?
Absolutely. I mean, I am absolutely not an expert on, I am an expert on him himself, but I am not an expert on how to help him every time. And so you have to find those resources outside of yourself. I remember when I was working with kids, when I first got out of college, I worked at a residential mental health facility with kids that had emotional and behavior disorders. And I took vacation, and the kids were appalled that I took a vacation, and so one day we were sitting in a circle in the gym, and they're like, "Why are you going on vacation, Miss Brandy?" And I said, "Because I am a pizza." And they were like, "What? You're a pizza?" I'm like, "Yes, I am a pizza. I give a little piece to you, and a little piece to you, and a little piece to you, and a little piece to you. And sometimes I give a little piece to myself." And so I'm going on this vacation because Miss Brandy needs her slice of pizza.
I need my own slice of pizza. Well, that's a good, that's a great take. That's a great take right there. I think we'll leave it with that. Everybody at home, to take the time to give yourself your own slice of pizza. That's pretty great, Brandy. Well, thank you for your time, Brandy. I sure appreciate you giving us so much personal information about yourself and sharing a little bit of your own challenges so that others can maybe be emboldened by your own strength. And I know that sometimes it's a challenge for all of us to have that strength and to get ourselves up every morning and face it. But you have to, and you do, and you do that by finding those resources you need. And so I just want to pass out to everybody one more time, reach out for that help, find the help that's out there, get connected to it, and find those resources. Thank you so much, Brandy.
Thank you, John.
Everybody, you're very welcome. Everybody, I'm John E Avocado, and I'm encouraging you to purpose your passion and to always dream, plan, and do. We'll see you guys next time.
Artlist.io